Welcome to episode 226 of Destination Linux. Whether you're brand new to open source or a guru of sudo, this is the podcast for you. My name is Michael, and with me today are Jill, Noah, and Ryan. And on this week's episode of DL, we've got a special guest joining us for an interview. Massimo Stella of Kdenlive will be joining us to talk about this great open source video editor. Then we'll take a look at the Linux Kernel 5.13 that is going to be released pretty soon, and discuss some of the major ARM news that is going on with the kernel. Plus, we have our tips, tricks, and software picks, all this and so much more coming up right now on Destination Linux. In our community feedback we're going to be heading to our forum. Go to dlnforum.com and you can join there and participate on the conversations yourself. And this was a very interesting thread that was posted. It's talking about the Flash is dead, for example, and they say, what else would you end of life if you could? What are your top computer technologies that you wish would just go away already? So this is a really funny concept, and we wanted to talk about this because, well, we just had to bring it to the show to mention what we think would be things that we'd want to get rid of. But first of all, the people in the thread mentioned a lot of good stuff, like, for example, USB Type A. That's something that should go away for sure. Social media websites like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. There's a very good argument for why those things should go away. And also, interestingly, cryptocurrencies, because of the environmental impact. And the biggest reason is the GPU shortages. Fair enough. Very good points. So what are some technologies that we would like to get rid of? So let's start off with Jill. What do you think is something that we should get rid of?
Well, one of the major things is UEFI. Like the technology, but I'd rather have the open source Core Boot, Libre Boot, or U-Boot firmware instead. Definitely. And more and more manufacturers are starting to use open source with that, thankfully.
Do you think we'll ever see that outside of the Linux community? Is it something where the technology is, or is it just going to be manufacturers like System 76 and Purism and those folks who are going to implement that? Meaning, is there a drive there? Because I've never really looked at the differences to see we know it's superior from a privacy standpoint, but would Windows ever go away from it, for instance?
Probably not, because Windows had something to do with like the development of UEFI. I don't know exactly how they were involved, but the Secure Boot is something that they are essentially required, they're necessary for Secure Boot and being involved.
And one of the other big things that just annoys me and has for many, many years of using Linux, the Windows keys on keyboards. Sometimes there's two of them.
Such a good one.
I like that.
So, manufacturers don't assume we all use Windows. And it would be nice just to have a generic super key would be nice. And, I, of course, always put penguin or text stickers on mine. I always have those handy for every new keyboard.
And also, that's a good one because it made me think about, why do these companies not put their own logo there? It's not like it needs to be the Windows key.
Great branding opportunity, right?
Yeah. There's plenty of options. They could just put any logo they want, or just some generic, like you're saying, but their own logo would make sense. Yeah. And they take so much opportunity to brand it in the weirdest places, and that's the best. You could just do it that way.
Yeah, and my other one I put down was USB Type A. I love the technology, but dislike the duckbill form factor. Come on.
You don't like having to keep turn it?
Yeah.
There was a fantastic comment on the forum thread about this. It was when you try to plug it in, it doesn't fit. So you turn it 180 degrees and it doesn't fit. So you turn it 180 degrees again and now it fits. What?
I've done that so many times where I'm turning it. No, come on. What's the magic here? And then suddenly it goes in.
Someone posted another response to that explaining why this happens. It's that it's in a quantum state, and until you observe it, it's in a superposition. So you have to look at it and then go, oh, okay, now it's going to go in.
I'm actually stealing that because, when people are like, oh, Ryan, you're the tech expert. Can you come here and plug this in? And then you can't get it to go in the USB port. Oh, it's in the quantum state. Just give it a second.
Yeah,
there we go.
So speaking of which, Ryan, what are things that you would be, want to get rid of? What are you sick of?
I'm thinking here to kind of go technology trends to kill off, non-repairable thinner phones. I remember the day Back in my day, we used to be able to pull a battery out of a phone and then put a new battery in, and
What?
things were fine. Yeah. And laptops would be able to replace the battery, and you could replace the RAM and even upgrade them and upgrade the storage inside of it and repair the fans if they went bad. And I know this is weird to a lot of you listening today, but this was kind of the expectation. And if you didn't have that, we really didn't want your products. But somehow we've been sold on this idea that thinner is the way to go. And that's the only way forward. And I think the only people who actually like the thinner stuff, because every person I talk to is like, the phone's getting so thin at this point that it's slipping through my hands and falling constantly. I don't get it. Like, I wish that technology trend would die.
I agree, and it's funny because there's even some I was watching this video talking about like why did these devices start bending? It's because they're obsessed with this thinness and they're making compensations, and the whole reason they're even bending is because of that weird obsession that really no one wants. Like there is a level of where thinness is too thin, and I think we've hit that on multiple occasions.
Yeah, we really have, and it doesn't drive anything but heat issues. And of course, when these phones break now, it's impossible to fix them. Even when batteries were first integrated inside and you had to pull off the screen with some suction cups and things to get to them, it was obnoxious, but it could be done by somebody who knew what they were doing. But now they're kind of covering the back and the cracks in another form of glass that it literally makes it impossible. So all it is just e-waste, even for the manufacturers. They'd rather just give you a new phone and throw that one in the recycling bin. It's really frustrating that trend has happened. So I wish it would die. I also wish the trend of Alexa and a personal assistant inside of devices would go away.
Ryan.
I cannot stand when I want to buy a television or I want to buy headphones or whatever, where it's like includes Amazon Alexa, includes Siri, includes this. I had situations where I had to get rid of, there's these Sony headphones that I really liked. And I think they had Alexa or something integrated, and they had the touch portion. I can't think of the brand right now. But a lot of people love them, but it kept calling random people from my work for the personal assistant, because there was I would put them on, I'd be listening, and all of a sudden someone from work would answer the phone and be like, hello, on my headphones. Like this technology is, and I had to sell them. Because it was like, this is terrible. Like it just randomly calls people. These stupid personal assistant built-in things just needs to go away. Televisions that sell your usage data, Vizio, I'm looking at you because you're all in the news this week for this. Like, this is not okay either. I just want a TV and it displays pictures. That's where our transaction ends. I hand you money. You give me TV. You don't need to take my data. And this is a trend of people wanting everything cheaper, right? Everyone wants a 75-inch TV. It's a dream, or an 80-inch TV or 108-inch TV. And so they're like, well, we can bring the cost down if we just sell everybody's data for this. So now you can get a 75-inch TV for $999. Oh my God, I want one. What they don't know is that Vizio is actually making, and according to the article that I read, as much money from selling your data as they do from the television now. So this is a real concern that I think needs to go away. And then USB-A, it must die with an unholy fire. So.
I agree with the TV thing, especially with like the whole, some of them have microphones listening to you at any given time. Like, my TV does not need a microphone. Thank you. I had a couple things that I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to just talk about some of the trends, like you were talking about, tech trends, and sense of like getting rid of all of the gluing down stuff that's similar to your thinness of the thing, but just specifically the fact that it's not repairable is just so irritating. And it's even to the point where, some trends, they are getting rid of stuff, but they shouldn't, like chargers for devices. Like, why is that a thing? Like, why are we getting rid of chargers? Like, they say it's
you mean not including the brick?
Yeah, exactly. They're not including it when you order it, and they're saying like it's an environment thing. You're like, what? It costs more to get the charger now. Like it's you waste the shipping. You're having to
the
package
charger's
it
going to be in a
separately.
separate box, separate wrapping, separate manual.
It's the opposite of what they're claiming. It's so ridiculous. But one of the things that I do want to get rid of, because I think that I understand there's some arguments to keep it, but 32-bit architecture, like software and stuff like that, to get rid of that, because I know it's I know Noah is not in agreement with this. Because there's a lot of people who have the same
Have computers that are perfectly usable. If you
Vintage
can give me software that
computers.
runs on a 32-bit architecture, yes.
Yeah, but also we should hold back all progress because of that.
You don't have to hold back, right? I'm not saying stop making newer stuff. I'm just saying don't take mine away.
Well, the reason
People
is
will
the
bench
same
us
argument applies to Flash, right? So people say like, I don't want to
agree with
lose
that.
my Flash games because,
Yeah, I
but we
don't.
can just emulate those things. You can run the
Yes.
software in a 32-bit emulator and stuff like that. You don't
just
have
get
to.
that working first before you take my thing.
I agree with that. Fair enough. But at the same time, I think that we should, make the technology move forward. And there might be, maybe Noah, it doesn't
the
want this to go
technology
away
move forward.
either. I don't know. But I think that a piece of technology that has no use anymore, and I would be happy to go away, is fax machines. Why do those still exist?
I know.
Fax machines. Interesting.
They
There's
still
gotta be a
exist.
good use case for a fax machine.
Yeah.
We still
somewhere.
have to
I
go
don't
to
know.
FedEx to
I got-
fax stuff.
Yeah. I got asked someone like, "Oh, if you want to send, would you like to send it to a fax or email?" Like, what? What? Email? Thank you.
You could do a commercial like the Apple commercial, but it would actually make sense when the kid turns around. What's a fax machine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
So Noah,
Good one.
what are your thoughts on this?
What I think we should get rid of is the first thing is this reliance on apps, specifically this mobile centric sphere. There's certain things you can't do in life anymore unless you download the industry or the company's apps. And it drives me nuts. And it wouldn't bother me so much if it was just about getting an app. But the problem is there's an assumption there. When they say an app, really what they mean is an app that we're going to release for one of two platforms. And oh, by the way, we may or may not require things like access to location and 24/7 reporting.
Yeah.
All of those things come along with the implied idea of an app. So it starts as just, oh, what's the big deal? You have to have an app to go use that. No, I don't want your app on my phone, and I certainly don't want it poking around at stuff. That's number one.
Mhm.
Number two is this. I'm sick of the obfuscation of technology. I remember when GPS was announced, and I grew up. My dad was a scientist to a degree. Right? He's a physician, but science, and he studies science and cares about it. And so, we looked at everything and learned about things in just their raw, honest terms. And so, he hands me the thing, and he's like, "Look at this thing. The GPS is coming out there. The government's going to give access to people. They launch this in space. Isn't it fascinating? And here's how many satellites you have to get a fix on." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool." And we're taught. He's explaining it to me, and we're reading and understanding and learning. And then a few years later, like 5, 6, 7 years later, one of my friends, I get into their car, and he's like, "Yeah, it has nav." And I'm like, "Really? What is nav?" And he's like, and I look at him like, "Oh, it's GPS." And he's like, "No, it's nav. It just knows where you are and can tell you how to get places." And I'm like, "Right, it's GPS, like there's satellites, and it can pinpoint the car." And then he's like, "No, the car it's nav." And I'm like, there's this obfuscation, like people don't care anymore. And it's fine to a degree, right? It's fine to just say, "Hey, you know what? I can only be a master of so many things. Like some things just confuse me." But I watch, being able to walk into a place like Radio Shack and pick up capacitors and resistors and switches and learn the concepts of like things that are normally on and normally off. And if you take a 9-volt and 2 AA's, you get the same as a 12-volt battery. All those things are just things. I'd walk into the store and I would go, "How can I grow and learn and explore technology with these resources?" My kids walk into Best Buy and they're like, "How can somebody else make something to entertain me?" Just look around like, what can I buy and how can I just have something handed to me? And it doesn't stimulate both parts of the brain. It's not active growing, and it's not learning and exploring. It's just, I want to sit here and I want entertainment to be pumped into me. And I want that to die.
Man, that is so powerful, Noah. That is so powerful.
That is very interesting. I agree with both of those things, but I also want to just go back to the first one you said about the whole apps being required for all these sorts of stuff. If you're watching the video version, you'll see these lights behind me in the backdrop. I originally purchased some lights that I immediately sent back because they required an app, a third-party app too, that also insisted on my GPS to change the color of the light. Like, why is that a thing?
Noah nailed it. Noah nailed exactly why it's a thing. It's a thing because this is why when you go onto a website on your phone, it says this would be better experienced with an app. And the reason they want you to do that app is because the permissions they can get on your phone by making you download that app are so much more invasive and they get so much more data on you And the app is just fine in the browser, or the service is just fine in the browser, by the way, but it'll still keep popping up. Hey, have you thought about trying the app? Because man, this app thing's really cool. So you think you have to have the app. It's a major privacy issue, really.
Well, just so everybody knows, I did send those back and got new ones.
I was so proud
don't
of you,
require an
Michael.
app.
Yeah. Yay.
Well, this was an awesome conversation, and thanks to the awesome people on our forums for bringing this up and allowed us to have a very passionate and fun conversation about it. And we love hearing from our worldwide community. So you've got a couple choices here. But the first things you have to do is you have to get your official DLN mug. It's very, very important.
Very
you fill
important.
it with some
Water
coffee
bottle.
or bubbly.
Nice.
Bubbly is the
Yeah.
official drink of Destination Linux, official flavored water, no matter what Michael tells you.
Bubbly.
Yeah, they're going to sponsor us one day. Sit down at your nearest stool and send us an email to comments@DestinationLinux.org. And if you want to join in the other conversation, then you join the DLN community forum by going to dlnforum.com. You post really interesting topics like this, and the community jumps in, and it's a ton of fun out there. So get out there and comment to us on your stool with your DLN official mug.
Naturally.
Yay.
It's very important that you included those in the final part.
And to be clear, comment while sitting on your stool. Never mind. Anyway, this episode of Destination Linux is brought to you by DigitalOcean and their new app platform. DigitalOcean's app platform service is a solution to build modern cloud native apps. What all of this means, it means that you're a developer, you sit down, you want to write code, and you want that to become a reality. DigitalOcean translates your code into reality. That's what that app platform is. And by listening to the show, we give you a code. You get money for free. do.co/DLN. That's do.co/DLN. That gets you $100 credit. You're following me? You're getting money by going to do.co/DLN. You can spin up a server on DigitalOcean's infrastructure, and then you can use their app platform to turn your code into reality. So do.co/DLN. Get $100. DigitalOcean thanks us. We thank them. Everybody thanks everyone. Your code becomes reality. It's all possible thanks to DigitalOcean. So a huge thanks to them to sponsoring Destination Linux.
We've been so excited about Kdenlive 2104 that we just had to bring someone from the Kdenlive project onto the show to give us the inside scoop about the status of the project and where Kdenlive is going next. So joining us on the show today is Massimo Stella, who is a senior video editor, advisor, and tester for Kdenlive. Massimo, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and I'm very happy to be here to present Kdenlive because, of course, I'm very in love with it, because even if I will not participate in the project, so it's very good to be here, actually.
Nice, thank you. So we're curious about your journey with Kdenlive. We'll get to Kdenlive in a minute, but just like, how did you get started with contributing to the project?
Okay, actually, the story is pretty long because I start to monitor, to check out what was available on Linux to edit videos around 2002, 2003, this year. So the probably was the only stuff that could be considered somehow professional was Cinderella, but there was a bunch of problems at the time. I still have problem today. I tried to interact with Erin Virtual, that was the writer, the coder. At the time, I never come back to me. So in the time, I followed the other project. At a certain point, the only group that really had interest and have constant feedback with me was the group of Kdenlive. Kdenlive was a project that probably I prefer, even if it was still growing up. And so I have the opportunity to participate, and starting from 2013. Actually, I was pretty disappointed because I want to migrate to Linux completely, but I have still the problem of the video editing.
To kind of summarize, you went and you were looking for a project to contribute to, and then Kdenlive was kind of the first group that kind of was actively kind of open to accepting your want to contribute.
Mostly that, because actually I have some feedback, I have some interaction with other guys, but the only reality was really dynamic. I really want to grow and to change. It was not just a project, but for example, a lone person that go by himself and mix, but was this project. There is a bunch of debate. It's something that was not still a community like today, but was a pretty open project at the time, was not the most advanced, but was dynamic. Actually already set up in a decent way, even if it was not ready for professionals. So I was happy that's the project, actually.
Absolutely.
Oh, very cool, Massimo. So in your opinion, why is it important that people have access to an open source video editor?
We are in the philosophy of what we are doing with
Yes.
Linux. There's like freedom in speech, not like freedom at the beer at the pub, So today we are in the world that is dominated by media. So today the more efficient way to communicate what we are doing, that kind of stuff, media, so communication is through video and audio, etc. So it's like to deliver a pen to someone in the pen and papers to express himself. So I guess that it's a fundamental tool. I don't believe that a person, mostly in even poor area of the world, to learn how to do that has to pay a fee to some companies or have to crack a software, because I guess it's something that has to be accessible to everybody, just for a fair opportunity in terms of media. So media democratization, we are speaking about that. So we have,
Kdenlive is such a critical project to my own personal journey in Linux, because I started a YouTube channel. I was doing a bunch of things in Windows. I was doing like SQL tutorials and those type of things. And then I stumbled upon, I was going down this road of looking at security and starting to understand the privacy issues that were happening in things like Windows. And people kept talking about Linux. In fact, I think the first suggestion to me was Tails and those type of things. But then I started looking at the videos, and everybody was doing videos on Linux at the time. 99% of the videos were, hey, you can run Linux on old hardware. And I had this latest and greatest, stuff that had just come out. And I was like, I wonder if Linux works well in that. And I did my 30-day series. But I couldn't have done that 30-day series and passed the red face test with the audience if I didn't have a video editor to actually edit those videos in Linux to show that open source is just as viable, that you can move to this platform. You could still do your YouTube content. You can still stream gaming because of OBS, but I can edit all of that utilizing a powerful tool like Kdenlive. And had it not existed, and the alternatives that are out there, frankly, are not very proficient from a professional. If you're trying to do a semi-professional video YouTube channel, they just don't have the effects and the things that you need to be successful. I would have had to go to Windows to complete the task if Kdenlive didn't exist. And I just think it's really important when we think about projects like this. I would have never gone through that journey. I would have probably been like, yeah, Linux is okay if you want to write word processing and do that kind of stuff, but you're not going to make video content on it. And gaming back then wasn't great, so you're not going to game on it either. And I would have probably moved on and kept doing Windows videos. Well, because things like Kdenlive existed, because things like OBS existed, the ability for me to completely switch my workflow after being decades in Windows was viable. And it's just such a critical project. And I appreciate all the work that everybody in the Kdenlive team has done to make it where it is today.
But this is when you asked me about the journey, what brought me to Kdenlive, was that the point. So I want to migrate to Linux. I'm a video editor, mostly a filmmaker, so I need a piece of software like that one. There is nothing around that was able to replace anything. And I say to myself, there is no video editor, professional video editor who participate for real. Maybe people that have small companies in Kdenlive already participate. They have enough skill to propose interesting stuff. A person that have really in the industrial skills means they work in industry, they big in bigger facilities like Hollywood or television like me, were not present in any project of that. So it was very, very important that someone that have the knowledge participate to that, because it was a piece of software was missing. I can tell you, Kdenlive is a very high level of development. But for example, when I working on the spot for very fast production of documentary news, I'm still obliged to use professional proprietary software. So I'm very close to switch to Kdenlive Me Too for professional purpose, because we are close to. But it was a long process because still we miss something. So it's very important to complete the task, because now we are, to me, the leading software probably in the open source.
Without a doubt.
But we have to complete to really be competitive, because my goal is really to replace the other software that you can run just on Windows on Mac. I want to have all my job of the done on Linux if possible. This is my goal.
Tell me a little bit about the differences that the like the developer atmosphere back in 2003 when Kdenlive first appeared. You know, there was a slow on ramp as people were getting on board, and they even took a pause for development for about 2 years. How does it look today? How has that culture changed?
Okay, I must say that I know that you watched the video presentation in an about page that I released, I created recently. Remember in September. So I was all right at the time. I go back on the internet and I check what I found, the discussion they have at the time to understand what to write to tell the story about. At the time. We have this JSON world that was mostly alone with some guys around. Majority of people complained that it was not possible to achieve to create a video editing by just one coder. Right. In 3 testers, you need 2,000 testers, 10 coders. You're crazy what you're doing. So this kind of mentality is not the best to face a challenge like that one. Lucky as Jean-Baptiste in 2005, they just knock on the door. May I help some way take the legacy of the project? It was very constant in take it in any kind of condition and bring it forward in time, most migrating from one platform to another. But at a certain point, when in 2015 he decided we go professional, it really start to create the idea of a community. Because we understood that we should have replacements, so more than one people at times, not just a personal project. If we have a community-based project, the project will go forward even if we have problem, because it can happen that someone has problem in life, so have to move out of the project. So be more people, and maybe you have more debate, more discussion, you lose time for someone, but the project become more stable. So I guess that now today, the project is stable, has a big root, a big base, so we are proceeding faster for this reason. Mostly, I believe that we have a long future in front of the sense.
Awesome.
So when you consider the proprietary offerings, the Final Cut Pros and those type of things, what are some of the items that Kdenlive can do that they can't? And then to follow up, what are some of the things that Kdenlive can't yet do that they can? So where are the gaps basically between the two when you compare them?
Okay, the most interesting thing that the Kdenlive has that other software has not is no software is around. No way. Only Kdenlive is the fact that you can apply the effects on any level of the production. So you can apply effect on this asset inside the bin before even to use it up to the end level. So this is what allow you to customize completely the environment you work on, because you can put the filter on the track, you can put the effect on the master final track. It's similar to the filler that you can find in Avid, or the effect layer you can find in Premiere, but it's a little bit different. But the fact that you can place the effect on the clip, on the timeline, on the clip in the bin, on the clip on the track itself, etc., allow you to customize completely your environment. Mostly the fact that you can put on the tracks. What we still miss is what we have in the roadmap. For example, the nested timeline is very important. I think that is a key point that will game changer. Absolutely, it was scheduled for the 2104, but we decided because someone for the Google Summer Code last year prepared the subtitle track. So when we have the subtitle track, I guess that we decided that it was important to try to finish the task, so to make it automatic subtitles and text to speech. So we focus on that. We found Vosk, so we integrate this module first. But very important that the timeline, nesting timeline, advanced trimming tool, of course, refine and complete the transition, the standard transition on one track, and secondary color correction, and probably refine and improve the multi-camera environment. And that at this point, except for the audio that is manageable, my idea is that there is not some clear idea between what is the multi-channel audio and surround audio. It's two different stuff. Multi-channel, we use more channel of audio to achieve depend what is your project.
Right.
Surround audio is a way to use multiple channel of audio, for example. So, but we'll see what happens. We are dynamic, we are work in progress. So after this, I guess that the way you use the tools, but the tools are all in at this point.
You know what I love is that that question could so easily be like, well, we've done everything we've wanted to do so far, and then that's it. But I could tell by your answer how passionate you all are about finding the individual things to compare. I've actually talked to other folks who are creating video editors in Linux and asked them about the competition, and they go, well, I don't use the competition, so I don't know. They don't understand the features. And to me, that's actually not that's not a good thing. I feel like you have to know what your competition is doing out there and the features that people are looking for when they're making multicam support, GPU rendering, right? So we have the ability to offload to our GPUs, the nested timelines, as you talked about. All of these features are, they're more advanced than what you're going to get in your standard video editor that maybe comes with Windows 10 for free or Apple for free, but they're the things that people are looking for when they go to the Adobe Premiere level, they go to the Final Cut Pro level, and they're things that you all have a clear timeline on and you're working towards, which to me is just, it's awesome to hear that you're keeping up with the level of professionalism that goes into software they charge thousands of dollars for licenses for. It's amazing, actually, to see it.
I want to say something about that. The fact was actually my main contribution. The fact I'm obliged to study all the software because as I work in an environment, so I always face different. So I found different solution in front of me. And I know what in the real job, when you make big projects, you need for real, because sometimes you really need. Exists two problems to me in the open source community, that a bunch of people ignore the other software. So the proprietary software, actually they have to study, as you told about. In Kdenlive, this is my real job to suggest, well, sorry, this.
Right.
And then also to, for example, there are some stuff. For example, you quote the GPU. The GPU, in terms of the use of GPU in the video editing system, is not so advanced, not even in proprietary software. So it's complicated because it's starting from the past. For example, I'm speaking about also in SD resolution, we have some effects, some specific stuff that maybe use a graphic accelerator to be in real time, but not all the software. It's never been that, not even today. So maybe GPU is more used today for rendering out to the output, or maybe to render in the preview. But just some effects, for example, work this way, not all the effects. So a lot of people, for example, they complain about Kdenlive that you don't do that, but not even other software do that, actually, because we're still in progress, the technology. So we ask us what we can do, and maybe we can even overpass the technology that exists in proprietary software. I don't know that, but not even entering in a zone where might become, you are not able to do that. So you are not a good software where it is not actually not even available nowhere the same feature you're asking for. So it's
that's actually interesting, because you know, when Ryan was talking about the whole feature complete thing, it made me laugh about the fact that whenever I hear a project say that they think the project is feature complete, like, you can always improve something. So anytime I hear that, it just kind of disappoints me. It's like, okay. In Kdenlive's case, and specifically, I want to talk about like the latest release of 2104. You mentioned it earlier, and let's just talk about some features that were 2104, because there's a lot of cool stuff. We talked about it when it first came out on the show, and I mentioned my favorite features. What are your favorite features of 2104?
The VOSC integration, and mostly the automatic subtitle creation, is not something that everybody uses every day, but it's something that actually is interesting tool. It's a very saving time, mostly for the people talking about the timing of the subtitles is pretty precise. And the fact that you can edit speech to text, you can edit just the text to have the final interview.
I think that's such a cool feature you all included in there. That is so cool.
I took the inspiration from Adobe Premiere, actually.
That's fine, because y'all were able to do it, and we can play with it.
Yes.
But I'm stealing ideas all the time, watching other software. Actually, I try to do better with Farid too.
There's a great book out there called Steal Like an Artist, and that's what it's all about. That every technology, everything that people are creating has been stolen or started from a foundation somewhere else, and it's completely fine. And it's exactly what you should do to move technology forward.
It's called inspiration.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we take inspiration from our software. So what is you told me before about the fact that it's over, is complete. Nothing's complete because also I call it the competitor, but they're not competitor, the proprietary software production. They always try to evolve. Maybe Avid not too much because was the leader of the market for a long time, but they try to mostly insert in AI, like we did with the speech to text. Mostly it's something, so they are moving anyway. So it's never ending the process of the technology move forward. So maybe you can integrate interesting stuff. I would like to, in the time, to reach all the tools we need. That is pretty complicated in lab, but even to improve the quality of the way you use it. So make it easier, make it faster, so more productive the program overall. Now, today you can do almost everything already, but do it better. It's better. So what I can say.
Yeah, I think some 21.04, the effect zones were definitely some of my favorite improvements there. And then just the addition, the ease of adding effects in. But I'll tell you too, when Kdenlive, when I started this a while ago, had kind of a reputation for you might be in the middle of video editing and things would kind of crash. And I see that people talking about that today, but I haven't had that happen in so long. So I only want to mention it because of the fact that you all have done so much work in the stability of Kdenlive in these recent releases, to the point where I can't remember the last time, I'm talking years here, and I do videos constantly, that I had an issue where Kdenlive would crash, or even if it did, that I wasn't able to recover, which is huge because obviously if you're in the middle of hundreds of edits and something breaks and you lose your project, that's a major problem. You all have done a lot of work in stability, and I kind of want to highlight that for a moment. Can you talk about some of?
Yeah, of course. We passed through phases. We have, of course, to thanks Jean-Baptiste as usual first in terms of writing the timeline. Also, Nicolas Carioni entering the game that is not anymore part of the core team, but was very important his job. And I don't want to forget anybody, so I stopped the list even if I go offended. But the fact was that when we started job, when I enter in the game with a list of big suggestions, and I finished to edit the big document I told you about in early 2015. When you start to implement some new features, we found a bunch of problems. The code was really messed up because after 15 years of overlaying code by moving in platform, etc., was very, very messed up. And that's make very difficult to fix up the program. When we started refactoring of the timeline in 2015, that actually finished in 2016. We start after 1 year. We tried to move with that timeline to try to improve, but it was not possible. And we finish, we say 1 year is 3 years was. So we finished in 2019. After we insert the new timeline, things change completely. After we finished to insert the new timeline, and then we refined, we reset everything because there was 1 year of, resetting everything. After this moment, the program totally changed. And now it's possible to make correction, to fix it. Now you know that now we are boosting the performance all the time. We try to reduce the demand of the system to make it faster, smoother. We still have some problem, but now is increasing the stability and the performance of the program is visibly a lot better than before. I don't feel that is inferior to other big important proprietary software. So at this point.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in the latest versions, and I think that the refactoring was a huge step forward, and it's been like the stability is also a fantastic piece of that refactoring. But there was also something that was added that I accidentally found, and it was amazing. So there's an auto recovery system built into it just in case something goes wrong. And if there's a crash, like I've had a few crashes here and there, but every time I load the Kdenlive back up, it says, "Do you like to recover?" Like, well, yes, I would like to recover. And then all the stuff comes back, and that's just awesome. And I think that that's another factor of the stuff that we don't necessarily look at until it's necessary. And then to see that Kdenlive has already taken advantage of creating that process is just an amazing thing to see.
But I must say, I make you laugh probably, because I must say that this is a legacy actually when the program was crashing so much. Jean-Baptiste created this system of recovery that in the time it was even improved, but it was very important at the time. Maybe today is not so important, but anyway,
it's funny how it's funny how we overlook it in other programs, because there are times where I still play with computers, friends, Adobe Premiere. I have Lightworks that I play with, and these programs crash, and it happens. But when it happens in an open source project, sometimes it feels like we have a different level of expectation when it happens with something that's free and open source than we do with $1,000 program. Because we're like, it's $1,000 program. It must be my machine, not the program, because I paid $1,000 for the program. Whereas with Kdenlive, it's kind of like there was no mercy almost with the issues. Now, there was a time period where I think a lot of people probably were having too many crashes and things, but that is long gone. I would say today, Kdenlive and utilizing it, there is no difference in the amount or experience you may have from a crash that you would in Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro or any of these other programs out there. And the auto recovery that existed probably because of the time period where Kdenlive was having some issues is the same technology that you see in those programs, because they know their programs crash too, where it just auto recovers. And as long as that auto recover works, I'm not mad. Like, I just reopen the program, click yes, auto recover, and I'm back in business. Now, if that stops working, then I'm mad. But otherwise,
you trigger me in my resentment against the proprietary software, because actually I have a long experience with the software. I started to edit professionally in late 90s. So we're speaking about of another age. So
yes.
Adobe Premiere was always a mess. It never fit any machine. You have to buy, to change pieces to make machine perfectly fit on Premiere. You have a bunch of problems. If you check the list of issues they propose, and the trick to fix up your machine was long. You never finish a bunch of patches to fix it up. Was always and your machine never was very stable. If you make timeline longer than enough, it was, you have to buy matrox and this and those, and you always have problems. And everything costs a bunch.
Yes.
If you want to use Avid, you have to buy Avid machine. So dedicated machine, not even to connect to the internet. It has to be stable, not updates, like a refrigerator, like a freezer. You buy it and that's it, and don't touch it.
Right.
So we complain, but actually, if you buy, you pay, you don't have not to complain, because if something goes wrong, means that it has to be that way in people's mind. But
it's your problem, right?
If it's free, no, it's because it's free. It's cheap stuff.
Because it's free,
It's amazing how the weird cognitive problem that we have with, like, we're paying for something and are more lenient to the thing we're paying for than the thing that's free. Like, what?
Yeah,
Massimo, I wanted to let you know I also do. I've also worked in Hollywood and have done film editings. Worked in television, visual effects, and one of the new features I was really impressed with in the 2104 release is your finer grain of controls in the effects keyframe panel. That's huge. To be able to duplicate frames and move a selected keyframe to cursor and move multiple keyframes at once. All the proprietary software do that function, including Blender, including Adobe Premiere and After Effects. So that really brings it up to the professional world. It's huge.
Oh yeah,
I'm very glad that you appreciate that. Anyway, we try to improve what we have already, so it's good.
So how does Kdenlive prioritize the features they're going to focus on next?
Okay, that it's come from. Okay, we have this the first step was to find what was important in the other software was missing in Kdenlive, and that was my main task at the beginning, writing the guide about the difference between Kdenlive, Avid, Premiere, and Final Cut Pro 7. I wrote a big document still around on the internet, quoting the difference, what is missing, what is not. And when after people was informed what was possible, was very basic, not everything, but the most important feature. For the first sprint for the refactoring, so I guess was 2016, we defined the roadmap we're still following. That is based on that document partially. After that, we in the work in progress of the program, we find what is prioritized, because maybe if you do that, you can open the gate to another stuff that is important too. So the work in progress, so what you need now to go forward next, what the input of people, because maybe someone has urgency, something is easy. So like Matt, you said before, no, I asked this stuff and the day after was ready, and because it was easy to do, it makes sense. So it's
let me request though that you never prioritize Michael's requests again, please.
What?
No, I don't know. Actually, in a recent meeting, after I spoke with Michael we chat on Telegram about the focus in the window, and I quote it and say, someone open an issue on the event KDE, say, yes, Michael. Okay, so he's in the list. We'll do it soon. And so absolutely, when the ideas are good, enter in the list, of course.
Fantastic.
We have main feature like nested Thailand, for example, stuff like that. And then we have also space for simpler or easier tasks. So we try to open to suggestions that make sense, that are not in conflict with because some people enter with suggestions that do not take in consideration of all what happened in the time. Maybe you have this feature that is containing another feature, but when you reach the end of this path, you have it.
It can be a web or stepping stones, what you're saying, of development, that they want this end feature, but to get there, you all have to build these intermittent features before it's implemented. Yeah.
Exactly. For example, someone say, well, we don't make a simple Control X, Control V. So it depends. Contracts will depend. It's on which tracks you use, or where you enter it. You use like a 3D editing point. You use the rated zone. You don't use the zone, which is the target. So it's not. But why don't make it simple? Simple means that it depends what you have to do. So I make a list of possible options when you work that become probably 20 different situations. So it's don't care. You need this now in your mind, but not everybody needs what you need now that is related to what you imagine that moment. You have to be a little more. This could be an interesting idea, but it's something more complex than you imagine. Sure. So we need a discussion also to decide which is the interaction, the user friendly, how much make it friendly for the user. So
right, and also Massimo, I just want to thank you for pointing out to Ryan that my ideas are good. So
I don't think that's where we landed.
So Ryan, shush.
As the project moves forward, obviously you guys want to grow and are growing and doing those things. So as people listen to this and they say to themselves, I'm at that point where I want to get involved with an open source project, and I too want to contribute to helping people being able to create videos and stuff like that. How can people get involved with the project, and what kind of help is needed? And then as a follow-up to that, tell me a little bit about the Kdenlive video cafe.
Okay, no, because I want to I have a small premise. As I told you, for example, in the story, I know that we have an audio broken. I was monitoring over a software project. Then I saw Kdenlive. There is picture of people. I invite these people that meet. They do this stuff. So it's possible to participate. Today I'm here. So I just wanted, I proposed what I was able to do. There was a space for me in that sense. And so now I'm here today. So it's possible. There is a different needs on any level of skill, of desire. About the cafe was very interesting because for the first time we opened this cafe in a situation like we use the big blue button. So it's like Zoom, is like a video conferencing tool. People that want to show up their own face can show up their own face. People that don't want to show up their own face can stay hidden and just use the voice or just the chat. As before, we have this method of the chat. It was very nice actually and people can participate because, as I told you, what I found in Kdenlive was that there is an open debate, and people sometimes there is also some argue and some fight, but overall that means that is a dynamic project. The people has passion for it, and that is not at all a bad stuff. So it's better this than a person that go by himself, and if he's stop the project dies. How people can participate, of course, by just using it, testing it, and post, I have this issue, what I can do, participate on the chat on Telegram, use all the system communication we have, or just there is, for example, people that participate to create the manual. For example, I don't know anything about the manual. You can, for example, screenshot part of the program. We need images. You can translate if you in your language. You can suggest idea that you come to your mind in terms of feature. You can participate even with donation. Now today live by KD is doing that for us. But also just follow what happened day by day and testing. It's already great stuff. But anyway, entering content and even ask help. If you show up yourself and ask help in the chat, and we know that you exist and you can participate, that's already something.
It's a really interesting point, because ultimately what you're saying is just get involved in the conversations in Telegram, get involved in submitting bugs or issues that you're interested in seeing. And of course, don't start the issue with, I hate everything and I'm so angry and blah, 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 but more of, hey, I'm having this problem. Can somebody help me fix it? Would be good advice. But just get involved and be there and participate in the conversations and talk. And Michael, there's a rumor that you showed up to the latest video cafe, which proves that they'll literally let anyone in to the cafe if Michael's allowed. So what was it like for you, Michael, when you were there at the video cafe?
Well, it was interesting because I saw that they made a tweet, and I just yes, I will definitely be there. And when I realized anybody can join to just have a conversation, it's like, oh, I'm in for sure. And so we had a great conversation. I think it was like 2 hours long, or maybe even longer than that. And it was
2 hours now. Yes.
Yeah, it was about like how Kdenlive worked, and like people had suggestions and that sort of stuff, and I did provide some ideas that I had, because I was like prefacing everything as like, these are things that I was like wish was in Kdenlive and make it easier for me to do the things that I'm already doing and just kind of streamline stuff. And one of the things that I requested, I thought would be very complicated, to remove spaces but also make all of your guides move along with the clips. And I just like that's going to be a lot of work and everything. And then the next day, here's a link to the daily build for the thing I just did. That you just like, what? A day? Well, it just blew my mind. So like the cafe was a fantastic experience, and just having a conversation with everybody who works in Kdenlive, but also to see like the responsiveness of the project is another reason why I think it's one of the best projects available.
Yeah, we use this in business all the time. I tell people it's called planting seeds. You're not going to go to every video cafe and get the features you want the next day. Obviously, that was an exception. But planting seeds is if you have specific ideas of how Kdenlive could compete or be better, and you mention those and you're getting that in the developers' heads, that those are possibilities or things that the community is interested in, then later down the road, those things get implemented. It may not grow right away, but you planted the seed and it may come in a future release down the road. And I think that's an important part of getting involved in these projects, is just being a part of their community. At first you can lurk, and then you can get involved and actually start talking and sharing your thoughts and opinions. So what's coming in the future versions of Kdenlive that you're excited about and we can get excited about that's in the roadmap today?
Okay, I have to say that I sometimes see the future, not because I'm psychic, but because I have the chance to compile the test version that actually is available for everybody. If you're able to compile a program and you stay tuned on the GitLab, Kdenlive GitLab, that is a KDE event, you can have you can download every day. You can check what happened, what is inserted, different branches. You can compile, test stuff, so it's possible to stay updated in real time, participate really to test what is really not in the final release. So it's very interesting. It's in that sense. What we are working on, I already watched. When you a clip, you scroll on the clip and you don't move the length of the clip, but you move the frame inside, like you unwrap the frame inside the same. So you don't move the segment of your clip inside the section of the timeline, but you can refine the position of the in and out point by moving it.
Oh, wow.
That is very useful.
Nice.
For example,
Oh,
when you make documentaries or make music videos, and you have a perfect timing, for example, documentary maybe on the voiceover or in the music, of course, and you have to refine because it's offset maybe the movement of something. You want to have a better breath in terms of motion. You just refine, trimming. So I already have the opportunity to see this start working. We are working on the interface, but I guess that it will be postponed to the 2112. This one because the trimming, the advanced trimming tool will be after the summer. For the summer, I know that Jean-Baptiste is going to begin to work on the nested timeline next week. So I'm very curious to see what happened. So you can stay tuned. I told you where to go and watch and check if you're able to compile. It's not very difficult, actually. So you can test it, and we see what happened. We'll discuss what happened with the discussion that will be public. The most important thing about the participation is that being there, to speak. So feel that you're part of a movement is moving, and someone that is really take care of what we are doing. Just instead of, for example, as Ryan said before, that people make videos against us like we are an enemy because they propose another software. I don't even name who they are.
Right.
This is very bad in terms of open source movement. The people that share different projects, they try to compete. I don't understand why, instead of being really a community that try to be the best effort to, like, if we have different opinions, someone has to prevail. No, someone has to prevail. We can try to find out which is the best idea or the best matching point that make the next step forward. Not my idea or yours is not something is technology. There is a reference point. You can understand which is the best approach, the best option. It's not impossible. So participating is the key of the spirit of the open source community, I guess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the philosophy of open source in general. Like that, when I first looked into, like, started working with Kdenlive years ago, I just started using it, and then when I engaged with the asking about like how to do something or suggesting different changes, it just it also invigorated me, wanted to continue to use that project, because knowing that the project is receptive is a very important aspect to getting people to be participant. And right. And then that's one of the things that we wanted to have you on the show to talk about, because letting people know that Kdenlive is that kind of project is just, I think, is very important. So Massimo, thank you so much for joining us today, and of course thanks to you and all of the Kdenlive team working to create this amazing open source video editor. I use Kdenlive every week to edit this show, so I know I can speak for all of us here at Destination Linux that we've all benefited from the great work done on Kdenlive, and we're so thankful for this awesome project. So again, Massimo, thanks for joining us and taking the time to be here this week.
Thank you to you. Thank you to you. Bye.
Aww.
So this week in the news, I wanted to talk about the Linux kernel 5.13, which has been released. The interesting thing that caught my attention in here, yes, there's lots of new GPU improvements, better support for a bunch of different CPUs, graphics cards, storage file systems, all the cool stuff that we love, that all the kernel developers out there for adding in. But there were two that caught my attention specifically. One was Apple with their Apple didn't do this patch, by the way, which Michael can give us some more information on. But Apple M1 with the Apple Silicon device support is being introduced into this kernel. And now this is the very early stages of support, but essentially, for those that don't know, Apple has their own silicon that they are putting into their MacBooks, and we will have support with it in the Linux kernel. So if you accidentally bought one of those devices or somebody gave you one on Christmas, and
I
like,
saw
darn
the
it.
price tag, Brian. Nobody accidentally bought an Apple M1.
Okay. Well, you're right. Maybe a grandparent gifted you one on Christmas and you really didn't want it. You could still take that operating system off and put a good operating system like Linux on it with this support being in there. And then Microsoft also landed 64-bit ARM Hyper-V guest support in this kernel version. So lots of kernel support. Now, this particular one with Microsoft is this series enables Linux guests running on Hyper-V on ARM64 hardware. So is this kind of the future for Azure and having some ARM support in the server world? Not sure where that's going to go yet, but kind of wanted to open it up to the rest of you to say, ARM, Noah, you have talked in the past that eventually we are going to be sitting in front of terminals that go to a cloud. And that's kind of the future. We're not going to be buying this independent hardware at some point. Is this the kind of bridge in between today and that time period of ARM support going into the kernel at this rate that we're seeing?
I think that, yes, we are going to wind up using mobile devices. I think those mobile devices are more likely than not going to be powered by ARM. I think that the vast majority of storage and computing power and services that you're going to consume from those devices will be cloud-based. So I'm going to kind of rephrase sitting at a terminal, but yeah, I mean, I think that Microsoft is well aware that that's the direction we're skating. I think Apple's well aware that that's the direction we're skating. That there is a model. And my gosh, did COVID accelerate this beyond all possible measures?
Wow.
You know, you started at this idea that we give you a corporate issue laptop. I have never seen organizations so fast to be like, Bob has a phone and is willing to install all the apps. Tell Bob he's good to go. Like whatever we need to do to get Bob onto a Zoom conference. Well, I thought last month we sat in a security meeting where you said that the only Zoom meeting it is perfectly fine. We have the subscription. That's what people use these days. I mean, it's crazy. And so as I've watched kind of that take off, people are not going back to work. The pandemic has shifted the way that people view what is possible or isn't possible remotely. And that has then shifted where all of that IT infrastructure stuff is. So people now say to themselves, here's what I need to earn a living and get my paycheck was the whole reason I had a job in the first place. I need access to my bank account so that they can do direct deposit because there is no place to pick up a check. That's not a thing. We direct deposit. So that's how the money comes in. I need to be able to make my Zoom meetings and I need to be able to use my calendaring and email and whatever the Office thing is, right? And half of those are solved by the fact that half the world has gone to Office 365 and the other half the world has gone to G Suite. And then there's some stuff that's sprinkled in the middle. And so as people go in, they say, how do I offload all of that? Because now I don't have corporate IT, or I do, but it takes them, 6 hours to get back to me and I can't get to all the things, right? They go into their cell phone store and the cell phone store says, hey, every 2 years, we give you a new one of these things. Look at this. iPad Pro comes built in, LTE connection. You don't have to worry about routing and firewalls and configuration, network. It doesn't matter. No, none of it. Just plug it in. We put the SIM card in. Everything's good to go. Just take that walk out the store. Oh, great. Awesome. I come back in every 2 years. I pay my whatever the money is, and that thing gets delivered to me. My hardware's being delivered to me as a service. My ISP is being delivered to me as a service. All of the services I use for work, they're all being delivered as services. And that's beneficial to the company. It's beneficial to the cell phone companies. It's beneficial to the people who makes the app, beneficial to everybody else except the user because they get less control. Their privacy is the thing is at stake. And all of from that perspective, this is terrible. That's a really long way to go from ARM. But yeah, that is absolutely the direction I think that Apple and Microsoft and Google and all the places are going.
That's where they want it to go. Absolutely.
That's where they want it to go. It's where they're going to make money. It's sustainable, that nobody wants to pay $200 for the new version of Windows. They just expect it to roll down in Windows updates. So how do you fund that? Azure.
Yeah. But let me ask you, Michael, I asked you this earlier in the week and I thought it was really interesting. Obviously, Apple's not themselves putting this in the kernel. Microsoft actually is putting their patches in the kernel directly. They're working on it. Apple doesn't.
Right.
Somebody did this for Apple. How did this come along? Why is somebody writing stuff for Apple in the kernel?
Why are they doing it in terms of like the benefit of having that hardware have support? I would say that it's likely because that this is the path that Apple is taking, and this is what they're going forward with. And we know that is a guarantee that they're doing this. And they're also forcing companies to create software for that hardware. So this is a thing that's happening. And without having support for this hardware, it means that there would be a potential entire market that wouldn't be able to use Linux. So I do think that it's very important that Linux has support for the M1 architecture from Apple. And I also think that because Apple is pushing this forward, there will be some companies that are going to follow along with the ARM focus.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and doing this. So it is important that we have at least the early stages as fast as possible, because that means that we have a lot
kind of overcome some hurdles when anybody else implements it. Yeah.
Yeah, for example.
So who did this for Apple then?
So this is really interesting because this was done by Hector Martin, who has been around for many years, porting a Linux to a bunch of different devices and that sort of stuff. And he created a project called Asahi Linux, which is not necessarily a distro, but at some point they do plan to make one that will be available as a distro. And it's interesting because there's a lot of potential for this. But you asked a question earlier this week about, like, is this even legal to do? And they covered that on their website, because I was super curious about that too. And they said that as long as there's no code is taken from Mac OS to build the Linux support, the result is completely legal to distribute and for end users to use, as it would not be a derivative of anything of Mac OS. And this is really cool because I think this is definitely important. But a lot of people were wondering, is like, how is this even possible? Like, if Apple is not interested in having support other than Mac OS, how would this work? And they say that they make it possible to boot unsigned or custom kernels on this M1 or Silicon Mac or whatever they're calling it without doing any jailbreaking. And that is a really important thing. So it's not a hack, and it's not like a jailbreak to make this work. It's actually something that Apple.
It's really surprising that Apple left that open, because they've been known to not do that, right? Yeah. They've been known to kind of lock things to the point where you can't boot another OS, but maybe they kind of understand that if we do that here, we might lose a big potential bunch of clientele that want to use Linux on this.
I mean, here's the thing. Provided that they're the ones that are shipping the firmware, they can make that decision all day long.
At any point they want. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Let me ask you this. Is there, obviously, just because the Linux kernel boots doesn't necessarily mean that that everything's going to be flawless out of the box. It's not like I can go buy a brand new M1 and install Linux on it, right?
No, it's not. This is the 5.13 is going to have the first iteration of support for the M1's booting. It won't have like the best experience, but they have shown that it does technically work, and you can do certain things on it, but it is quite limited. But they are working on it, and they said that it's going to be relatively quick in terms of getting an average day-to-day usage of it. It won't be like a full-blown, super supported thing just when that happens, but this is just a gradual process of having to get support.
I'll be interested if somebody can just tell me when, because I'm just refused to play in that playground until somebody can tell me that, hey, you go buy it, you plug the flash drive in, you install it, and then everything just works. Like if that was the case, I'd look at Apple hardware.
Yeah,
I'd look at it.
I think that there's
buy it, use it.
You would look at it and then put it back down, and then go buy the Lenovo or the HP Omen or something like that. Yeah, it's interesting. This particular kernel release is so full of hardware enablement, and this is what I've been kind of preaching for a while, and I love it. I love reading through these notes when most people find them boring, and I would read them on the show, but nobody else would really probably care. But the Intel support for their latest generation of CPUs coming out is here. The huge AMD graphic boosting technology is in here. And even things that are simple, Apple Magic Mouse 2 support in the kernel, Microsoft Surface devices support in the kernel, different types of Thunderbolt ports, Ethernet controllers, all of these things that we kind of take for granted that, like Noah said, you can go into a store today, pretty much buy any laptop for the most part that's not Apple, take it home, put a USB stick in it, run Linux on it. It's because of all of this awesome stuff that they're adding into the kernel each time. They rock.
Oh, yeah.
I love seeing it.
I love every time I look at the thing, I do the same thing when I look at the what's coming up, and it sees like all the cool stuff that's being done. And with just like the 512, Now, some distros have 5.12, some don't, but there's been a lot of, even just the latest release of the current release anyway, the 5.12, had added support for the Sony PlayStation 5
All
controller.
the game controllers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that is
Nintendo.
awesome. And the fact that Sony are the ones who put it into the kernel is
Crazy,
awesome.
right?
Yeah,
That was,
that is.
yeah.
Does that mean Sony's going to release all their gaming IPs on Linux only to compete with Microsoft, and then we have all Sony place? That's the future, right?
They should do that. Again,
Okay.
Sony, do that.
Do it, Sony.
Do it.
Do it.
Yes. This episode of Destination Linux is brought to you by Bitwarden. You can get started right now by going to bitwarden.com/DLN because Bitwarden is an awesome password manager. It allows you to have peace of mind knowing that your online accounts are secure. So go to bitwarden.com/DLN to get started. And Bitwarden provides these tools that allow you to have passwords in a secured vault to store them, auto-generate those passwords for you, and even automatically fill in those passwords on login forms so you don't have to do it. And in addition to the auto-generation of passwords, you can auto-generate passphrases, which are awesome because it makes it possible for you to have a very complicated password, but remember it, because that is very valuable in some cases. You know, if you want to type it in, you don't have to type in this like, X% sign, dollar sign, passphrase. Fantastic that they have that as support as well. And you can have access to all of this across multiple different types of devices, your web browsers, your mobile apps, desktop applications, and even on the command line. And Bitwarden seals and encrypts your private data with end-to-end encryption before it ever leaves your devices, so you know you're the only person with access to your data. So go to bitwarden.com/DLN to get started with your account. Did I mention it's a free account you can get started with? So do that. But I also think you want to check out their premium account because there's a lot of extra features you get with it, and it's less than $1 per month. That's right. For just $10 per year, you can get 1 gigabyte of encrypted file storage, 2-step login with YubiKey, U2F, Duo, a Bitwarden authenticator for temporary one-time passwords, priority customer service, Vault health reports, which was just awesome because it basically says it'll show you if any of your accounts have been pwned on various different sites and whatnot.
Did you just say pwned?
I did say pwned. It's what it's called.
Wow.
I said pwned.
Okay.
So go to bitwarden.com/DLN to get started with your account. And thanks again to Bitwarden for sponsoring Destination Linux.
So this week in our gaming section, have you ever been in a situation where you go to a party, you didn't really want to go there, and they're like, hey, you playing this latest game that everybody's talking about? I got it here on my Nintendo Switch, and you probably can't play it on your Linux box. You probably haven't had that experience because none of your friends don't run Linux. But let's pretend you did have that experience, and you did have friends that didn't have Linux, and they were doing that. One of those games they might be talking about is called Huntdown. And because this is a very popular game out there on other platforms that you could play. Other platforms. Nintendo Switch, it's out there, 10 out of 10. Xbox, it's out there, 10 out of 10. But guess what? It's now on Linux officially. So you can play Huntdown. You don't have to use Proton for it. It's native there. You can download Huntdown and start playing this awesome side scroller. And the storyline in the mayhem-filled streets of the future where criminal gangs rule and cops fear to tread, only the bounty hunters can free the city from the corrupt fist of felony, lay waste in the criminal underworld, and make a killing in this hard-boiled action comedy arcade shooter kick butt co-op from near and far, action-packed arcade game, and you can play as one of 3 of the legendary bounty hunters out there. And it's discounted on Steam up to 20% right now. So if you want to take part in this awesome game here that just came available to Linux, go check out Huntdown.
Awesome. I actually do. I am a big fan of like this platformer beat 'em up style games.
Yeah.
And when I saw the co-op was there, like, oh, thank you, because this is one of the best things about those kinds of games is when they have co-op. So that is fantastic.
Yeah, this was out there on a bunch of different platforms, and people love this game. And I'm so happy we have it on Linux now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing Anaconda. She's the bounty hunter.
Let's read Anaconda, a storyline to see if this fits Jill. An ex-commando, okay, definitely. Firearms expert, yes.
Sure.
Full-time loose cannon, definitely describes Jill. Full-time loose cannon. Anna will assassinate without question or mercy, definitely fits Jill. As long as you don't mind the collateral damage. So yeah, Anaconda is definitely the bounty hunter for you, Jill, because all of those things are definitely how we would describe you.
For sure. For sure. Jill is just so savage.
So savage.
Savage. Well, the really cool thing also about this game is it's published by Coffee Stain, who brought you some of my favorite games, like A Story About My Uncle, Sanctum
really?
2, and Goat Simulator.
Nice.
So, they have a tendency to have the really fun games of lots of humor in them.
Goat
That's really cool.
Simulator.
I've
Yeah.
I've actually played a story about my uncle. That's a really fun game.
Oh yeah, it is. And Goat Simulator. Oh, you could put the your goat on NCC 1701D.
Of course you can. Also, it's like I saw. It's like, what is? Why would I want to play a goat simulator? That seems ridiculous. And you're like one of the first few seconds of the trailer is like jetpacks on a goat. I'm
Yeah,
like, okay,
it was.
course.
That was
course.
one of the very first games available for Linux on Steam. So
Yeah.
really
I did
cool.
not know that. Wow. That's interesting. Like, hey, Windows users, we got Goat Simulator. Sup.
So, we also have Huntdown, so check it out in the
Yes.
in the show notes. And also, what we have for you is a software spotlight. And we're going to talk about KDE Connect because in honor of having KDE Project Kdenlive on the show for an interview, we want to talk about something that I think is it's kind of odd that we never talked about it before on like a
I know.
spotlight.
How did we never talk
Right?
about this and all
This-
this stuff?
Yeah, when I looked at it, I was like, of course this is on here, but apparently no. But so KDE Connect is a project that allows you to connect your devices so that they can communicate with each other. Now, it works with different operating systems. If you have Sailfish OS, Android, or Plasma Mobile, this will work for you. And this is really cool. So this allows you to connect your laptops, your desktops with your phone and do all sorts of stuff. Like you can get your notifications from your phone on your desktop so you can actually just look at all, you don't have to pick up your device to look at your notifications. It'll all interconnect with your desktop, which is awesome. Also, you can transfer files back and forth. So of course you can send files directly from the share menu and that sort of stuff, but you can also mount your phone's file system into your file manager on your desktop. And that is just an awesome feature.
Yeah.
And if, let's say, for example, you want to do some remote control devices, well, you can remotely control your music. You can have a presentation remote with it. You can also turn your touchscreen of your phone into a virtual trackpad for your mouse on your computer. Really, really cool. So many great things. You can even use it to find my phone kind of thing. That's really nice too. And there's even customizable commands that you can run. So you can create your own commands stored in your desktop and then run it through. So you can basically activate something on your phone, which will then send a command to your computer to do whatever. So many different options. There's so many
Great
things.
way
you
to
can do
mess with people at the office.
Yeah, maybe we don't allegedly. So there's lots of different things you could do with KDE Connect. It is a fantastic piece of software, and thanks to KDE for making such an awesome project.
Yes.
Our tip of the week pertains to editing videos in Kdenlive, and that is the acquisition format. You probably don't think about that. You just think about the editing. Here's why you should. In OBS, there's a number of different things you can record. You can record, obviously, connect a camera and record a source that way. You can capture your screen and capture the source that way. But the inside of OBS, you'll want to save that video file and choose the format that you're saving it in. And so the video file you want to be using, a lot of people think about using MP4 or MKV. I think that is the default in OBS still FLV.
I think it is still FLV.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll want to change it to MKV. Here's why. Unlike MKV, MP4 and MOV, for example, require a finalization step on the file, including writing some codecs and some other bits. And so if something happens during the recording, like you get a sudden loss of power or your stool falls into your recording equipment and shuts it off, then you're going to lose that project entirely. So OBS will save you from that, and they'll provide a warning if you try to switch out of one of these formats that requires a finalization step. Well, MKV doesn't, and it doesn't require that final step, and so therefore it's a much safer file to use. Also, unlike FLV, which also doesn't require a finalization step, MKV supports multiple audio tracks.
Mhm.
And so if you wanted to record your show and then have Michael's commentary on a different track, that would be a possibility for
As
you.
one would want.
So next time you want to do some live video, see, it would have been nice to have that on a separate track. Next time you want some live video recording, then make sure to check out OBS or whatever tool you're using and make sure that uses MKV. Although I would tell you, after using OBS, OBS once I started to use it just for doing live streaming, but then after a while, it got to a point where I was like, well, it's available in the repos and it works for basically everything. So a lot of things I used to use like Kazam and stuff for, now I just use OBS for everything.
Same.
Same.
Yeah,
One tool to rule them all.
Mhm.
indeed. Well, a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening. However you do it, we love your faces. And if you want more DL, well, you need to become a patron like all these amazing people here with us right now behind the scenes in our virtual 94,000 square foot stadium.
It sounds like it's getting bigger every week.
I know.
The skybox is being remodeled.
Yeah, we're remodeling it right now.
Naturally.
I got the corner suite.
And you get VIP access to events and live recordings of Destination Linux every Sunday, except you get the behind the scenes. See, everybody's watching on YouTube and Twitch and those things now, but patrons, they're behind the scenes. They even have their own little comment section where they can write to us during the show and make fun of Michael. It's amazing. It gets Michael's attention
you
far
can do
more.
all sorts of stuff, not necessarily make fun of Michael. You can make fun of Ryan. There's tons
Mostly
of
make fun of Michael, let's be honest. And you can do all that by becoming a patron on Patreon or sponsors. Your choice. And you can also hang out for the patron-only after show.
In addition, every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we're now live at DLNLive.com. The best part, everyone is invited to watch the recording of Destination Live each and every week. We can't wait to see you in the chat.
And also go right now to DealInStore.com and pick up some swag. We have t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, stickers, aprons, all sorts of great stuff. And
Look
also
at that.
the canvas bags is available too, and all sorts of stuff.
Nice.
There's tons of things that you can check out at DealInStore.com, including the water bottle that Jill is showing. And by the way, that is a fantastic thing. The people don't understand how important water is to life, and they typically sometimes say like, "Oh, bubbly is a great water is what people should be using."
Bubbly is water.
But
It was next to strawberries.
but sparkling is not real water. Anyway, go to DealInStore.com to check out all the great stuff that you can get there.
And we have so many amazing shows here on the Destination Linux Network. We have the Sudo Show, the Ask Noah Show, This Week in Linux, the DOS Geek Channel, DLN Xtend, Hardware Addicts, and get your game on with our latest show, GameSphere. So go to DestinationLinux.Network and subscribe to all these shows to keep those penguins marching and full Monty of Linux and open source awesome sauce. And remember, this Wednesday, May 19th, DLN Xtend will be doing a live show. So make sure to come into chat for that.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
And also, everybody have a great week. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Noah.
Noah, squeak!
Man, I really am off today. Jeez.
I'm-
I mean,
Have
that's
I ever
not really a
missed it, Bobby?
requirement. It's just a me requirement, but I love hearing it.
Have
'cause
I
it's
ever
like-
missed it? I've never missed it. No,
No,
I missed
no,
it. Slipping today.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Just
I'm
slipping.
sorry, guys.
We'll fix it
I'm
next
sorry.
week.
All right, patrons, everyone, turn on your cameras, turn on your mics. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, Ryan, I just love the pink. It's beautiful.
Look at that. That is so cool.
I
I'm
need to
gonna
know,
start
You
Jill.
using
got all
it.
the DOS geek
We'll fix
stuff.
it in post.
Jill, did you buy everything off the store?
Pretty much. I have another batch coming in a couple of weeks.
I love
Like,
Jill.
every time they mention something about the store, you're like,
I have it. Aprons here, bags here, water bottles.